Morning everybody! It's the second morning in a row that I am up and ready to do a morning tarot. I really enjoyed doing it yesterday, so I'm going to carry on for, for as long as I can, I think, and for as long as I'm kind of enjoying it and getting into it. So yesterday I looked at the 2, 3 and 4 of swords. So today I'm going to carry on with the 5, the 6 and the 7 of swords. Okay, so first off, I think I've got my stick a little bit more secure than I did yesterday. It's still a bit wobbly, but it's probably not going to have to shift it around quite as much, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, or touch wood, literally, as I did yesterday. So, the 5 of Swords. This card, I think, is a very interesting card, because I think it's one that we can all quite easily relate to if we look at the story in it. When we're looking at a tarot card, when I'm looking at a tarot card, I think that the most useful thing you can do is actually see the story or the picture that the card is representing, because it's representing, usually almost like 9 times out of 10, it's representing a situation that's happening that is something that you can understand, and you might see that the person that you're reading for, the situation might put them in the position of being one person or another person from either side of the situation, but you don't have to worry about that until you're actually reading a spread, because when you're reading a spread, you'll see from the other cards around it quite clearly which side of the situation or aspect of the situation that applies to the person that you're reading for. So just being able to understand the story when you're looking at the card on its own is the most important thing. Take a breath. Yesterday I spoke really quickly. I'm going to try and just slow it down a little bit this time. So looking at this card, the 5 of Swords, the situation that this represents is one where somebody has gone a little bit too far. Whenever I look at this card, I think, okay, somebody's been playing a bit too rough. So we all know the situation when we are children, or if we watch children playing, kids will be playing a game, they'll be doing something, they'll be enjoying themselves, and then quite often one of the kids, who maybe is a bit bigger than the others or a bit stronger or is not in a very good mood that day, starts to take it a bit too seriously, and they start to go a little bit too far, and it all ends in tears. If I was going to give this card like a little byline, I would probably give it, it's going to end in tears. What I think you're doing when you're looking at this card is you look at the guy here and the guys in the background there. So the first thing to notice about this card is the weather. Again, we've got water in the background, slightly stormy water. We're showing there's an emotional situation here. People are feeling upset, there's feelings involved. We've also got quite a stormy sky, such as we saw in the 3 of Swords, which shows that things are kind of moving quite quickly. There might be literally a fight has broken out. It's some kind of quite fast moving situation. It's quite a stormy situation that's going on. We've got the 2 men here who are quite clearly upset. This guy looks like he's crying. That guy's walking away. They've thrown their swords down on the ground. We've got this figure here, and you can't really see his face very well on camera, but he's kind of smiling, and he's quite an intense look on his face, and he's picking up all the swords, he's gathering them together. So the situation seems to be that there's been some kind of fight or play fight or something going on between all of these guys here. This guy's the winner, and now he's collecting all the swords together. It's like mine, 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 mine. But what's happened is that the people here in the background are clearly, it's not been a game for them. They've been hurt, they've been upset, they're crying, they're giving in, they're walking away. So this guy at the moment feels like he's won. He's won all the swords, yeah, he's the victor, but actually what he's done is he's created a situation where he has intentionally or unintentionally, and quite often I think it is unintentional because people get caught up in a situation, they get caught up in the moment. He's hurt these other people, he's taken it too far, he's gone one step too far. So right now he might be feeling very victorious and very happy that he's won, and he's won the argument, he's won the situation, but he's won at quite a hefty cost to the people around him. I know certainly myself, I have been the guy here with the sword before, especially when I've been in an argument, because if I get into an argument and I'm feeling really cross, then I will start arguing and arguing and arguing, and after a while it's no longer about whatever it was that you started fighting about, and I think most people can relate to this. The argument just becomes about winning, and when you just become all about winning at any cost, and you don't care anymore, you're so focused on winning in a situation, coming out on top in a situation, that you can go too far and you can be very hurtful and you can hurt other people, and ultimately you're going to regret it when you calm down, because you might have got all the swords but you've lost a lot of friends. So you could be looking at someone here who is this guy, You can look at somebody who's been hurt by somebody who's done that, been hurt by someone who's taken something too far, or who pushes too hard, or who's so focused on winning in a situation and being on top and being number one in a situation. It could be a personal situation, it could be at work, but they're actually hurting the people around them. I just think this card is one that we've all been in a situation, probably where we've been both. The person who has gone too far and the person who has been on the receiving end of somebody who is willing to go all out, and they don't care whose feelings they trample on to get what they want. The next card, the Six of Swords. So this situation here, looking at the picture, looking at what looks like a family, sort of a husband or a wife or a man and a woman and a child in a boat, they're crossing over water. So again, water is emotion, so we can see that there is a lot of emotion here because it's a very large body of water. This is all water. On this side the water is kind of ripply, that's where he's steering. On this side it's calm, and the swords are all carried with them in the boat. So this card for me is a situation where you're kind of moving on. Maybe you've been through something that's difficult, you've been through a traumatic time, something has happened, you've gone through a painful process or a big change. It's something that's probably not been easy for one reason or another reason. And this card talks about moving on from a situation like that. It's talking about sort of travelling onwards and choosing not to stay in that situation, choosing to get some perspective, and also knowing when to walk away. It can be important to understand when you need to walk away from a situation, or when you need to say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm not going to let this affect me anymore, or it's not worth it. It could be a job, like a job situation. You might have been in a job with a boss or co-workers who are like these guys, you know. It could just been a constant fight to be on top, and people could have been mean and hurtful and tried to get you into trouble and made your working life miserable, to the point where you've decided, you know what, I've had enough, I quit, I'm going to get a new job, I'm moving on. It's not worth it to me, and this card is about moving on. So the water, for the largest part, is quite still, it's quite calm, which suggests that this is a situation where things are calming down. It's not a particularly happy looking card, everyone's kind of got their backs to the camera, as it were, to the front, a little bit hunched. There have been some hurt feelings, and it has been a difficult decision, and people have been through a difficult time, but they are taking steps to move on, to get out of a situation and to heal from a situation, and to put some distance between themselves and those people. One of the important things I think to remember with this card, though, that's represented here, is that even when you've been through a difficult situation or something that's been traumatic or hard for you, you can't run away from a situation. You have to deal with it. So this card is reminding, in the fact that the swords are all in the boat here, that you still take your troubles with you, you still take your problems with you, you still take the emotions with you. So if you haven't dealt with the hurt feelings, and if you haven't dealt with the things that have happened, if you haven't dealt with the consequences, if you're just trying to run away, bolt from a situation and pretend it hasn't happened to you, then you're not going to be successful, because you will take it with you. So it's a reminder that even though it's a good thing to move on and to make that decision, and sometimes you have to lick your wounds a little bit and you might feel a bit sorry for yourself, and you also have to remember that when you've got enough distance, you will have to deal with whatever it was that happened, because otherwise you'll just be carrying it with you. So you can't run away from your problems, but there is a wisdom in knowing when to take the step to move out of a situation and to start to cope and start to deal with the situation. This actually can also indicate literally physically moving house, or moving abroad, or moving to a different place, but not always. Oops, stick wobble. And finally today, the Seven of Swords. This is one of my sort of favourite cards. I love to hate this one. I don't hate it, but I think it's very interesting. This card is, I'm trying to think how to start talking about it. At its worst, I've heard it called the smiler with the knife. So this could represent somebody at its worst who is willing to smile in your face, and at the same time they're smiling in your face, they will stab you in the back. It's not always that dramatic, of course. I tend to think of this card as being a smokescreen. So whenever I see this card come up in a spread, I always want to say, and usually will say to the person that I'm giving the reading to, that they need to very carefully examine either their own motives and what they're doing and the reasons they're doing something, or, depending on the cards around them, look at the motives of the people around them. Look at what people are doing and what people are saying. Are people doing one thing and saying another? Is something going on in your life where you are being a little bit dishonest, maybe with yourself or with other people? Are you in a situation where you are trying to swing things or spin things or present things in one light when really you know deep down that things aren't that way? Again, this can happen often in business. It can be somebody is trying to close a deal, or trying to persuade somebody to do something, or try to persuade somebody to take a certain job, a certain role or responsibility, and saying, oh, it's fantastic, it's great, it's wonderful. You might be promoting credit cards, but you know on the inside that actually what you're doing might be a little bit dishonest. It might not be the right thing. Obviously, it can happen in relationships too. When you look at this card here, you see yellow. It's the first time we've seen a lot of yellow, and yellow is very much mental energy. There's a lot going on. Whenever you see a lot of yellow in the card, it means there's a lot of furious energy happening. There's a lot of things going on, and you see this guy here, very, very busy. He's picking up the swords. He looks like he's tiptoeing away. He's looking behind him. He does have a slightly dishonest look. You get the feeling that he shouldn't really be running off with those. They probably don't belong to him. And whilst that's happening, you see all the tents in the background, and here, oops, there we are. Those little figures, and that's smoke. And I always look at this and it looks to me as though this guy has set some kind of fire, or has got something going here, so that all the people from the little tents from the village have all rushed over here to look at what's going on. And whilst their attention is focused here and nobody's paying attention to him, he's very, very busy. There's something is going on behind the scenes with this card, and it's not always the thing that you think. It could be something very different. It's usually quite a clever person with a lot of mental energy. I mean, it could be innocent. You could be reading for somebody who is represented by this figure who's just about to go and do a surprise party for their best friend after the reading. It's not that likely in my experience, though. Usually there is something a little bit more sinister going on. And so I always encourage people when they're looking at this card to look at their motivations, to look at what they're doing, if you feel they're represented by this person, and why. Are they being honest with themselves? Are they being honest with other people? Is this really the best way to go about things? And why are they doing things this way? If this seems to represent another person in the life of the person that you're reading for, you might want to tread carefully depending on who it is, for ethical reading purposes, but you can encourage them to look at the people around them, to look at who is saying one thing to them, but their actions are actually telling something else. It's all about using your intuition, yellow, the colour of intuition, and looking at a situation, looking at the people that are around you, and sort of trying to see clearly what's going on. Is there somebody in your life that is very much trying to get you to look the other way, so that they can busily go behind the scenes and do something that they know that you wouldn't approve of, or they know that you wouldn't like? What an interesting card. So many situations that can be applied to this card. So again, like before, you can see sort of almost a bit of a story here. Imagine you've got the 5 swords. There's been some kind of quarrel, conflict, fight. Someone has taken something too far. They've done something very hurtful. They've taken away the swords. They've got people crying. There's been, like, spilt milk. There's been tears before bedtime going on. And as a result of those tears, somebody decides, you know what, I've had enough now. That's it. I don't want to be in this situation anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm moving on. I'm moving away. Yes, they're still hurting. Yes, they still have a lot to do with, but they're taking themselves out of that situation. They're getting perspective. Meanwhile, everybody else who decided to stay in that situation is faced with looking at somebody who might be going behind their backs, trying to stir up trouble. Is somebody gossiping? Is somebody manipulating a situation? Somebody trying to create a smoke screen so that everyone's attention is focused on one thing and they can get away with something else. A very sly kind of character. Very Iago. Anybody who reads Shakespeare, Othello, this is Iago whispering in the ear. So I hope that was helpful and you enjoyed those 3 cards, and I guess I will see you tomorrow. Thumbs up, what do you think it might be? Have a lovely day. This will be out of context if you're not watching this today or in the next few days, but we have had, or they will have had, I believe last night while I was asleep, it will have started Hurricane Sandy in the US. So just sending all my love out to everybody in the US and the Caribbean, everybody who has been affected and will be affected by the hurricane. Much love to you. Bye.